Welcome back everyone to A Gentleman's Life. Sam here, another video for you. A couple of days late this weekend, but got a little caught up with some things, but school is done, so that's a big plus. Got a week off. I've been also trying to get ready to move and planning a small vacation for later this month. I'm taking a 4-day weekend and going up to Stockholm in Sweden, place I haven't been yet, so I spent a lot of my weekend planning that trip. But I wanted to get a couple of videos made today, so this is the first of those. And this one is going to be the video comparison review of the Mark I Christopher Ward Trident GMT and a review of the Mark II version and comparing the two together. So that's the review that we got coming up. I am wearing the Omega today, so it's a Seamaster day for me. I'm getting ready to go back to work tonight, so I thought that is what I would do for my next couple days at work. And as far as upcoming videos, I do have a viewer email, so if I get another one shortly, I might do 1 or 2 viewer email videos coming up. I got another review I'm making today that I will get up in the next day or 2 as well. So keep an eye out for those, and we'll go from there. But without any further ado, let's get on to the video review of the Christopher Ward Trident GMT. So here we are, everyone, with the Trident GMT. So this review is going to be of the Mark II version. Here you can see the Mark II Trident GMT by Christopher Ward. Now this comes in 2 different sizes, 42mm and 38mm. So I ordered the 38mm. I also had previously the Mark I Trident GMT, which you see here, which only came in 42mm for the GMT version. So I thought I'd do a comparison review, something a little bit different of the 2 variations. So looking first at the Mark I, you can see the Mark I versus the Mark II. First, the size between the 42, there we go, about the same distance away from the camera now, versus the 38mm. You can see the hour markers on the Mark I are mostly circles, with the exception of the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. You can see on the Mark II they are all stick indices. You can see, possibly, if you get a little bit closer, you can see the second hand on the Mark II has a loom pip. You can see that the GMT hand on the Mark II has a larger triangle. And you can see that the date here is at 3 o'clock, whereas it is at the 4 o'clock here on the Mark I. Now also the Mark I uses an aluminum bezel, which you can see is numbered all the way around in GMT hours. The Mark II has this really nice ceramic bezel. However, it has a diving ticker for the first 15, which then switches to GMT hours. A few differences I've personally noted here is that the ceramic bezel is really nice. The loom is significantly better on the Mark II. As well, the application of the loom to the hour hands, the hour markers, is all just much done within much better tolerances. It's just much more precise on the Mark II compared to the Mark I. Also, the Mark I is a 300-meter water-resistant dive watch. The Mark II is a 600-meter water-resistant dive watch. So that is a difference, and maybe that's part of the reason they did the 15-minute ticker there, is to kind of highlight its diving qualities. The crown is also a little bit different here. You can see the on the Mark I, polished all the way around and embossed. And the Mark II, much chunkier looking grip, as well as it is matte within a polished CW. Another big change is the case back. So on the Mark 1, you can see it's just really lightly engraved, whereas the Mark 2 is much deeper stamped engraving, much nicer, much more on the quality of what you would expect from something like an Omega Seamaster. Whereas the Mark 1 is really not there. This leather strap in the Mark II is the one that came with it, and a good quality. I do like that it doesn't have the fitted lug ends. The strap I have on my Mark I is actually one of the alligator straps with the batter buckles, specifically because it also doesn't fit to the edge of the case. The leather straps that came with the Mark I versions fit into the case, and I just didn't like the way that really fit. So some thoughts here before I go into the macro view. Really, in almost every way, the Mark II is a complete improvement over the Mark I. They do use the same movement, the ETA GMT movement. I don't really care about the date window location. Both of them are fine with me. I really do like the handset, the hour and minute hands. I don't really care either way for the size of GMT, although I think the one on the Mark II fits in better size-wise with the hands on the watch. Really, there's only one thing that I think is better on the Mark I than the Mark II, and that is the numbering on the bezel. The 15-minute thing just really kind of gets me, and I didn't think it would. But it just feels wrong on a GMT watch to me to not have the numbers go all the way around. Enough so to the point where even though the 38mm feels like it fits better, I prefer having the extra bit of color. The lume is better. The hour, I like the hour markers better. I like just about everything on the watch better. I'm still not sure which one I want to keep, and it's specifically just the numbering on the bezel. So that's enough for me to not sure yet as to which one I want to keep and which one I want to not keep. So really not a lot of differences otherwise. I mean, they're both more or less very similar watches. The cases aren't much different at all. The Mark II is a little bit thicker, but really that's just this bubbling of the case back that sticks out on the Mark II, which kind of provides that extra 600 meters water resistance, and you don't really have that on the Mark I. Other than that, no change there. Both have the polished top and brushed sides. Both come with your standard options of leather, rubber, the bracelet. I happen to have leather and rubber for both of these. So really, it's just all a bunch of minor improvements that end up in an overall better watch. If I wasn't getting the GMT one, I would for sure, no matter what, choose the Mark II. If I was getting just a standard dive watch, the Mark II would be without a doubt the one I would choose. Due to the diving ticker for the first 15 on the bezel of the dive variant, or the GMT variant, I'm still undecided if I prefer that or if I'm going to stick with the old one. I'm going to do a couple of wrist shots now of each, and then I'll get into a macro lens look at the Mark II. I'll give you guys a closer up look. So first, a wrist shot of the Mark I in the 42mm. And as a reminder, my wrist is about 6.5 to 6.7 inches, or about 17 centimeters. And there you can see the 42mm on my wrist. It's not really too big, and it fits much better with this leather strap than the original one that came with the watch that fitted to the case, as I mentioned. So the fit issue hasn't really held up now that I've gotten a better strap for it. So that's part of the reason I've considered keeping this now as well. So that's the fit of the 42mm. And now for the 38mm 600 meter Mark II. I will say that the the ceramic bezel insert on these is really fantastic and stunning. It really looks nice. So you can see now how the 38mm fits. It also wears really nice and it's a really nice size and fit. And as you can see, that the bezel just looks really, really nice. So let me put the macro lens on and we'll have a look close up. All right. So a look at the Mark I. Here's we get really close up. So you can see the printing there, which is really crisp and well done. The black printing on the white dial, the white wave dial. Trying to get good light for you there as well. Let me turn this a little bit and see if that helps out a little bit. Yeah, that should help a little bit. The hour markers, you can see I added extra little loom pip in green there. So that's the 12 o'clock hour marker. You can see these are all really well done, really precise with the hour markers there. Let me show you the hour markers on the other one to kind of show you a difference. So you can see the that one's really precise, but some of these other ones don't seem quite as precise as the sticks on the Mark II. They're well done as well, but it just doesn't quite feel as precise. Also, you notice that there's the more ticks around the outside of the bezel, or the outside of the dial on the Mark I compared to the Mark II, which just does a tick for every second. As you can see here. Really nicely done though. The wave pattern is really nice. Down near the bottom we can see the GMT 600 feet, 2,000 meters, kind of hidden by the hour hands there. And we can get the hands in there. Really nicely done, as you can see. The loom pip on the second hand. And the nice orange GMT hand there. You can see the wave pattern is really nicely done, really well done. And it almost disappears at times. Alright, let's look at the ceramic bezel. Give you an idea of how nice that looks. So the ceramic bezel. There you can see how it's nicely engraved. There's the little loom pip at the 12 o'clock inside the engraved triangle, and you can see all the engraved markers there. You can see the way it has that nice shine to it. So really nicely done, and they're really nice action on it. The bezel action is significantly improved. From the original. And you can see the edging on the bezel as well. Really well done. Okay, and the crown, you can see the nice chunky grip, along with the nice, what I really like that matte finish with the polished CW. Very nice. In the case, you can see the polished. Ooh, that's more fingerprints than polish. You can see the polished top if it can focus. It's well enough polished where it doesn't want to focus. There we are. And then the brushed sides here. Really nice. And then let's give you a glimpse of the case back, and I can really show you the differences on the case back as well. So I'm going to show you the Mark I case back first. You can kind of see on the Mark I here. Take the strap off here. See, it's really lightly engraved. Not bad, just really light engraving. And then you can see here on the new case back, much deeper stamping. You can see the wave pattern to match the dial, and a really nice Trident symbol. And then Trident, 600 meters, GMT, ceramic. And highly polished except for in the embossed parts where it's really matte in the wave pattern. So the back is really nicely done. So that was the Trident GMT from Christopher Ward. And I guess now the question comes down to, you know, if I had to recommend the Trident, would I do so? And I really would. Whether you want the GMT version or you want the GMT version or you want the Cossack in-house movement version, or you want just a regular standard three-hander. Definitely worth it. I wouldn't necessarily go for the 300 meter quartz version they have out now, which is pretty much like the original except for quartz. I mean, if you're really on a budget, you could, but I mean, at that point, it's $300 or $400. You can find something automatic if you want it. But the ceramic, the new ceramic versions, the 600 meter versions, are all fantastic. And as much as the second tickers bug me, I just have a feeling that I'll choose to keep this one over the original. Not 100% sure, but I just have a feeling that I'll choose to keep the 38 millimeter over the 42 millimeter, just because of all the upgrades in it, and it adds a little bit of extra color that I don't have. I have a lot of black and white. I know this is a white face, but I have a lot of black, white, silver in my collection. The only exception really is the blue, Seamaster. So that red, that pop of red is really nice, and also I like the fit and the way the 38 millimeter is on the wrist. It's just really nice, a little bit different from a lot of the other larger watches. But I don't know for sure. That 15-second counter still bugs me quite a bit. But the rest of that watch, the rest of the upgrades are just really fantastic. So if you're considering a Christopher Ward Trident, I think it earns a stamp of approval. I think it's an excellent watch. I think you're looking now at something that's getting extremely close to Omega territory. I know the GMT here has the, ETA GMT, and their regular 600 meter version that's in the, I think, $600 or $700 range uses either the ETA or the Sellita SW200. However, they also offer it, Christopher Ward also offers the watch, the 600 meter ceramic version with their COSC certified in-house movement. And if you're willing to fork over that money, and if you're already looking at something in those higher price brackets, that's probably something that would be well worth your time. One thing to note, though, is that the in-house movement only comes in a 42mm size. You cannot get the 38mm size with the in-house movement. But another thing to consider is the in-house movement is going to run you much closer to Omega territory, and in fact, it runs you into used Omega Seamaster territory. So an example, the 42mm Christopher Ward Trident with in-house movement runs at $2,150 on the bracelet, or $50 cheaper on leather, or another $45 cheaper than that on rubber. And it comes in white face with black ceramic bezel, or black face with black ceramic bezel. Those are your options for the COSC certified in-house movement version. Now, for example, my Seamaster, this is a one of the very last wave dials. Obviously, doesn't have the ceramic bezel, but it does have the coaxial 2500 movement. So that was after Omega had moved into those movements with these. So I was able to buy this about 2 years old, maybe 2.5, but a couple years old for, you know, just under $2,000. So I was able to get a 2-year-old Omega Seamaster for about, you know, a couple $100 less than a brand new Christopher Ward in-house movement dive watch would cost. Now, granted, brand new, you know, this is, you know, right, almost double what I paid for it 2 years old. But it's just something to consider. Do you want the new Christopher Ward, or do you want a couple-year-old Omega Seamaster? Now, the ceramic Seamaster will probably be more expensive used than the non-ceramic, so that's something to consider as well. But I really can't argue with the quality of the Christopher Ward, and the in-house movement they've produced is very nice. So if you're looking at buying new and only buying new, you know, then yeah, you're going to save, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 compared to an Omega Seamaster, and you're not going to see much dip in quality. The bracelet probably won't be quite as nice. The clasp may not be quite as nice, but it should be pretty close. The biggest really downsize to me would be the bracelet quality. The Bond bracelet is a stunning bracelet, one of the best I've ever worn, and I just don't think the Christopher Ward bracelet will stand up to that. But the rest of the watch, I mean, there's not that much left, and a difference between the two once you have, you know, Christopher Ward's in-house movement in there. The machining quality and all that, based on, you know, having both. You know, I have the Seamaster, and having looked at the updated Christopher Ward, there's very little left between them. The bracelet is, in my opinion, going to be better on the Seamaster. You have a lot more history and heritage with the Seamaster, if that's what matters to you. The loom is still going to be better on the Seamaster. Not a lot, not as much as it would have been before. But, I mean, other than that, you're not looking at much difference anymore. That's about it. So, it's just interesting. Christopher Ward have slowly moved their way up scale from where they started. You know, they started as a true kind of entry level into the Swiss-made watches. You know, in the $300 to $600 range, and with a number of their pieces, they've moved up into the $1,000 to $2,000 range now, with random, you know, limited edition pieces reaching the $2,000 or $3,000 range. They've worked on movement modifications, complications, and now their in-house movement. So really interesting where that brand's going, and I quite like what they're doing. And I think their quality is where it should be for what they're charging. They're not a bargain. You're not getting way more for your money than you would with other watches. You're not getting a bargain, you know, deal, but you are getting what you pay for. You're paying a decent amount of money, and you are getting a very high quality watch for that money. So hope you all enjoyed the review of the Christopher Ward Trident, and enjoyed watching the video. Until next time.